Okay, Unit 4, Lecture 4C. This will be the last one for this unit. Kansas-Nebraska Act continued. Remember, an act is a law, a bill is a proposed law. Kansas-Nebraska Act becomes a law in 1854, proposed by Stephen Douglas. It does three things. First, it creates the territories of Kansas and Nebraska. Second, it gave the people in Kansas and Nebraska the choice of whether to allow slavery or not. This choice is popular sovereignty. Remember, it's a vocab term. Popular refers to people, sovereignty refers to rule, so the people rule, they get to decide. They're going to decide this through voting. All right, so the people then will choose whether they want slavery or not in Kansas and Nebraska. Third, since both Nebraska and Kansas lay north of the Missouri Compromise line, the Kansas-Nebraska Act, for the most part, does away with the Missouri Compromise, which is going to anger Northerners. It has two big results. Abolitionists and most Northerners believe that the Kansas-Nebraska Act betrayed the Missouri Compromise's promise that all territory north of that 3630 line of latitude would be forever free. Consequently, the Kansas-Nebraska Act produced bloody fighting in Kansas between pro-slavery and anti-slavery forces. We referred to this territory then as Bleeding Kansas, vocab term. Second, the Kansas-Nebraska Act led to the birth of the modern Republican Party. In 1854, a group of Northerners founded the Republican Party specifically to oppose the spread of slavery in the Western territories. Okay, now the Supreme Court is also going to add to these sectional differences and the tensions between North and South. And this is going to occur in the Dred Scott case. We have to be very aware of this, another Supreme Court case. In the Dred Scott decision, the Supreme Court will rule the Missouri Compromise was unconstitutional, and also states that Dred Scott was a slave, not a person. Property, not a person. So he had no right to sue. So Dred was a runaway slave, or not even runaway. Him and his owner had spent time in free territory, so he sued his owner, saying his time in that free territory made him a free man. The case gets all the way up to the Supreme Court, which, if you remember, is the last court of appeals in the country. So he appeals his way all the way up to the court, and there's a Supreme Court, which is majority Southerners, all right, appointed by Southern presidents, slaveholders themselves, sees against or finds against Dred, all right? You're a property, you're not a person. You can't even sue. And as a matter of fact, that Missouri Compromise interferes with our right to property, our right. One of the rights the South is fighting to preserve is the right to property, which we'll get into later. All right, so the decision then overturns efforts to limit the spread of slavery into the Western territories. It outrages Northerners. They hate the Fugitive Slave Act. They hate the Dred Scott decision, and the North is increasingly becoming very vocal and actively opposed to the spread of slavery, which is going to increase a wedge, the size of the wedge between North and South, and the fear of Southerners who strongly believe that the North is going to try to abolish slavery. All right, which is going to lead then to another argument over nullification. All right, saying that the Southern states said that the states can nullify laws of Congress, which has never been upheld. And they also begin to insist that the states had entered the Union freely and therefore could leave freely. All right, and a lot of this is going to start right in South Carolina again. All right, so we start seeing the quick approach of the Civil War. Want to secede, S-E-C-E-D-E means to leave, all right? So the states are saying they can secede. Things are really going to come to a head with the election of 1860. That's not it. That's it, okay? If you can see, nope, that's secession, my bad. There we go. Election of 1860. Lincoln will be our first Republican president. He'll be elected in 1860, the first Republican president. He will win the presidency without one Southern state. All right. And when Lincoln wins the election, South Carolina specifically, we can read their letter of secession in class. They'll tell us why they left. The South sees they've lost the government. They don't have the House. They're outnumbered in the Senate, and now they've lost the presidency, so they have no choice but to leave the Union in their minds. So we'll see with South Carolina, the Deep South starts to secede. All right, end of Unit 4, Lecture 4C.